Alright, great. So once you're signed up for StatCrunch, you're just going to go ahead and log in. And when you log into StatCrunch for the first time, it's going to look something like this. And just go ahead and click Open StatCrunch. And you're going to see just a blank, looks like a spreadsheet. And we've got to get some data into this. So for our first problem, the data file that we're going to use is, I've uploaded it right here. And you have the option to save it or whatnot. It's actually probably easiest just to copy this link address right here. Just copy that. And in StatCrunch, you can click Data, and we're going to choose Load Data. Okay? Or actually, right over here, load a data set from a web address. So we're going to click this link right here, this button. It says Load Data from an address. So I just enter the web address that I've got, that I copied and pasted, and yes, the first line as column names. And if this doesn't work, we can always go back and try loading the data set again. And you can just choose the default options, delimiters, white space, if it's might be a comma separated file or something, and then just go ahead and click Load File. And did that work? Try this again. Okay, so I clicked Load File, and here we've got the data loaded, and this is the same data that if you look at exercise 224 in your book on page 63, you see it's got the list of baseball players' weights and soccer players' weights. And what we want to do is we want to do some basic analysis on this thing. Okay, so if we were to analyze this data manually, we'd have to calculate the mean, which means adding up a whole bunch of numbers and dividing by how many numbers that we have. And we've got 25 in each group, so that's going to be kind of tedious. We can also create histograms and things like that. Let's first work on creating some graphics here. Okay, so you can see the top, we've got weight baseball and weight soccer. So what I'm going to do to create some graphics, I'm going to click the graphics button right here, and I'm going to choose to create a histogram. Alright, and so this box pops up, and I want to create a histogram for baseball and soccer, and I want to see histograms for both of them. So I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to click Next. And here we can choose our bin width ourselves, and I'm going to just go ahead and say 10 pounds as a good bin width, but we can choose to make the bin widths wider or smaller. I'm going to leave the start bins as blank. And I'm going to go ahead and click Next. I'm not going to choose anything for overlay density. And what I want to do is I want to create both histograms on the same graph. Okay, and so I'm going to ask both to use the same y-axis and same x-axis. And right here for graph layout, rows per page, I'm going to have 2 rows of graphs. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click Create Graph, and you can see it creates a histogram for the baseball players up here and the soccer players. And you can see how the numbers line up. 180, 180, the numbers line up, so we can see the histograms compared directly. If we didn't choose those, use the same x and same y axis, these numbers won't line up. They'll just be centered. Okay, and we can actually see how changing some of the options would affect that. But right now, what we want to do is we're going to either copy this diagram, and then if you're working on some like a Word document or anything like that, you can paste it in there. So here, if I open up OpenOffice, I can paste the graph in there and add some commentary on here. It's a little oversized. You'll probably have to resize it on your own. But then we can see how changing some of these options work. So again, from the histogram, if I click Options, I can go down to Edit, and I can choose, rather than having a bin width of 10, I can change it to a bin width of 5. Okay, and if I leave all of the other ones the same, I can go ahead and click Create Graph, and we can see how the histogram, the display changes a little bit. Okay, and this is actually the exact same data, by having the width of the bins change, we can see how things, how the look of the histogram changes. And so this is something worth exploring, trying different bin widths to finding something, and we can see how this goes. And what we do notice is that the baseball in general, the center is higher over here, and for soccer the center is lower over here. Baseball players, you have some pretty heavy baseball players, whereas for soccer players you don't find that many heavy soccer players. Okay, so this is just creating graphs and displays, the histograms here. And we also want to create some summary statistics that we can use to describe the data. So here we want to be able to find the mean and median, or the standard deviation and IQR. Okay, so looking at this, it might make sense. We have to make a judgment call. Do we use the mean or the median, or the standard deviation or IQR? So again, the mean and standard deviation is most useful for distributions that are close to symmetric, and the median and IQR are most useful for distributions that are skewed. Now these are a little bit odd shapes. This one's slightly skewed, but I would say the weights are mostly symmetric here, and over here a little bit skewed this way, but also if we were to use the mean and standard deviation, that would not be wrong either. Okay, so to create these summary statistics, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to choose the Stat button right here, and I'm going to click Summary Stats. Okay, and our summary stats, the data that we have, is in columns. So here the columns that I want, I'm going to select the baseball column and the soccer column, because we want both of these things. And it's giving us all sorts of different summary statistics that we can choose. And so by default it's chosen n, the number of observations, the mean, the variance, standard deviation, standard error, the median, range, min, max, first quartile, and third quartile. So I'm going to get rid of a few things that we don't really use. So I'm going to get rid of variance, I'm going to get rid of the standard error, and I'm going to also choose the IQR. Okay. We've briefly talked about the range. The range is just the distance between the largest point and the smallest point. And it also gives you other options you can choose for other statistics or percentiles, but we're going to go ahead and just leave that. And I'm going to go ahead and click Calculate here. And here this is the summary statistics that it's calculated. We have 25 in each one. We can see the mean for baseball is 193, whereas the mean for soccer is 174.7. The standard deviations are here. Here are the medians, the ranges, and the IQRs. So we can see the IQR for soccer is actually a little bit higher, but the IQR 18, the IQR for baseball is smaller at 15. But when we look at the standard deviation for baseball is larger, and the standard deviation for soccer is smaller. Okay, so it seems like, well, in one sense it seems like the spread for soccer is larger than the spread for the baseball, but we're talking about the IQR, which is one way to measure spread, and then another way to measure spread is with the standard deviation, and over here it's larger for baseball and smaller for soccer. And one of the reasons for that is that standard deviation are heavily affected by outliers, but IQR is not. Okay. We also see that the mean is higher for baseball than it is for soccer, which matches our intuition of the larger center, the higher center. Again, let's look at that histogram over here, and we can see the center for baseball is higher over the center for soccer. And again, these outliers over here are not necessarily outliers, but extreme points affect the standard deviation more than it does for the baseball than it does for soccer. Okay, so what I want you to do is create these graphs on your own and copy and paste them into your lab assignment, and then write a few descriptive sentences. Okay, just like similar to things I said, just describing the difference between the distributions for the baseball players' weights and soccer players' weights. Okay, and here you have StatCrunch, which is able to calculate all of these numbers very quickly for you and very easily, which is quite nice.